These two scientists, Lee and Kim, supposedly saw this material in a lab in 1999. That's why it's called LK, Lee and Kim 99. And so in 99, they came across this and they could not replicate it. And they had no idea how to make it again. And it disappeared and they didn't have the sample again. They then spent the next 20 years of their life. One was a college professor and the other one worked for LG as a battery engineer. And they just had these random, normal, everyday lives. All of a sudden, during COVID, these guys got some funding. They set up a company. They went into a lab and they rediscovered this material. And apparently, this is the rumor. I don't know if this is real. They were baking it in an oven in a vacuum sealed tube. And when the guy took it out of the oven, he accidentally bumped into a table and the tube cracked. And when the tube cracked, it did something to the material. And then they measured it and oh my God, it's room temperature superconductor. So here's the drama. This guy Kwon got inserted to oversee them as like their CTO. Kwon apparently got fired from his job in March and he was kicked out of this company, was no longer affiliated. They started filing patents and working on the manufacturing process, trying to figure out how to replicate it and do it again. They had all this data, but they weren't going to publish it. They didn't want the world to know about it yet. And then all of a sudden, Kwon gathers all this data, probably disgruntled after getting fired, puts it into a paper and puts it on the internet. So that's the first paper that came out.
Because there's a website and it's called Archive. This is a place for dropping papers outside of the
traditional
academia?
journal. Yeah, the traditional journal process requires peer review, and there's editors at the journal that decide whether or not to publish your paper. So it's a great place to just hit the world with your data, hit the world with your findings. So Kwon drops the paper with his name, Lee, Kim, and Kwon on the paper. Only 3 people can win a Nobel Prize. So the theory is he did this to get his name out there to make sure he could lock in his name for the Nobel Prize.
Wow. Juicy.
And then within a day, Lee and Kim and 4 people they've been working with, including some folks in the US, published another paper with better data, but it was also rushed out. And so both papers are pretty ugly, I got to be honest. They're like pretty messy. They don't have a great deal of clarity. There's errors in them. There's mistakes. There's redundancy. There's little basic chart editing errors, stupid stuff. Clearly, this was a rushed job. But these guys rushed out and said, you know what, if this is going to be public, we now have to correct the story and say what happened.